Hey guys, Cody here, looking to provide some more information on what it's like to be in DS, and maybe this can pass some of your time while people are sheltering in place with this coronavirus thing. So one of the questions I've been getting a lot of in the new group, in the Facebook group that I started up, and in general when I talk to aspiring agents is about MSD. Full disclosure, wasn't an MSD agent. I have tons of friends that were. I did intern with MSD after my time in the Marine Corps. While I was getting my degree, I did an internship with them for it was a summer internship for about 3 months. It was pretty cool. Got to hang out, shoot, train with them, be a little op for them, and it was pretty good. So I have several guys that are college students, guys and girls that are college students that have questions about DS. If you are a college student, you could get an internship with DS, and mine was paid. You'll get an option when you apply for an internship. Do you want paid or unpaid? And I know a lot of people shy away from asking for paid because they're concerned that, well, if they ask for paid, then they won't get it. But I asked for it and I got it. So I got paid for the whole summer being an intern at DS. After the Marine Corps, I was like freaking 25 years old, getting paid to hang out and just kind of do some day-to-day BS. But it was a good experience. Learned a lot there about MSD. And then I became an agent. And again, some of my buddies went to MSD. So I'll talk a little bit about them. The things that I do know, there may be some intricacies that I get wrong or don't know. They're not going to be completely wrong. It just might be the small nuance stuff. But MSD, from my understanding, is still a 4-year assignment. You generally can get it as your second or beyond assignment. When I was going through, or around the time that I came in, that year or so, they were allowing agents to go directly to MSD, and that's when they were hurting for bodies. So people were coming straight out of BSAC and going to MSD. Don't know if that's happening anymore. As I got towards the end of my time in DS, nearly 9 years later, I heard that was cut out, that they weren't doing that. But things change rapidly in the organization, so that's a possibility. But if you want it for your second tour, you can apply for it, and you can go. Some of the questions were, what are the prerequisites? There are none. Got to be a DS special agent. The training, they have a ton of training. I think this is one where I'm not sure, 9-month package to a year package, something like that. I know they do a portion of SEER school. They do some advanced training. They do, I believe, some other military training. It's really good training, is my understanding. And that's what I think is the reason it makes it a 4-year tour, because you do nearly a year of training and then they want you 3 years in the assignment. So if you're interested, like I said, you can apply for that generally on your second assignment or beyond. But the training, you have to pass it. There was a time where people were just passing, and they were passing everyone. It made it less desirable for people that were in the military and did time and thought, well, hey, this is a pretty cool gig. I want it to be, when it's competitive, it makes it more worthwhile, I guess you could say. And I believe there were some changes to where not everyone passes. And I like that personally. And I know some of my buddies that went through, most of them were former military. And you don't have to be former military, by the way. They'll teach you what you need to know. But they liked it whenever it was competitive, when you had to compete, you had to pass the regular requirements and go through. So MSD, the things they do, there used to be 3 different elements of MSD. One was MTTs, or mobile training teams. This is when one of the teams goes out and to different embassies, consulates around the world, and trains with the local guard force or the Marines, and they might do everything from hazmat to room entry to defensive tactics. So that's it. That's MTTs. The other element is, and I don't know exactly what they call it, but where they'll deploy overseas in support of a particular mission. So I know they were running ops in, I believe it was Yemen, running some operations there, and I won't get too much into the details for OPSEC purposes, but they just augment security in some places. We'll just leave it at that. And then the other one is they're here, they're back in the U.S. On a, I don't know if it's called a rest cycle, but they basically do training, kind of continue to sharpen the blade, refine their skills. And of course, they're here to augment high threat security details. So if there is a high threat detail that comes to the U.S., particularly around United Nations UNGA time frame, then you'll see those guys tacked out and supporting high threat or higher profile details, because there's so many, at least at that time of year, there's so many details running around. So any of my DAS agent buddies that see this, if you want to comment, and correct me on some things, freaking let me know, and I'll straighten it out. So, but that's MSD. Another question is types of departments agents can get into, or types of offices. So there's a number. I mentioned this a little bit. I'll be a bit redundant just for people that don't see every episode or every video. But generally you start out at a field office. It's a couple years. I would recommend at the field offices. I had a great tour. I was in Houston. I took advantage of everything. So I raised my hand to go to do a 60-day TUI to Iraq to do high threat protection. I went to every secretary detail that I was available for. I went to assist in any criminal investigation that I was available for, any task force, local task force, or DBFTF, which is a HSI run task force, volunteer to help them, whether it's on arrests or roundups or just cases. Volunteer for everything. Make the best out of the field office, and that'll kind of set you up to learn maybe what you want to do in your career, or the path you want to take as you proceed through your career. After the second, for your second assignment, there is a new list, and I mentioned this the other day that I would correct one of the items I talked about. For your second assignment, the list is called, I don't know, it's called something, but it's a lot easier these days for agents to get overseas on their second tour than it was before. I went to Iraq, one, because I liked it, but two, because I was hoping that would catapult me to a better post. That's kind of how it worked in the past, where if you go do a hardship tour in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, then you'll get one of your top choices. Now, that was theoretical. Didn't always happen. Most of the time, they would look at that and say, Roger that, we'll give you a better assignment. So now, second posters go on a special list that, again, I don't know the name of, and you can go to things like MSD, which is usually pretty easy to get, I believe, or you can go overseas at a nice traditional post, which is harder to get, or was hard to get, and I think it still is, just because we're so limited with posts, and we have number with 2,400 or so agents. So that's just something to think about. So field office, next post, whether it's domestic or overseas. And so the domestic assignments that you can get into, whether they're your second or not, or numerous. Headquarters has a ton of different assignments. They have PII, which is Protective Intelligence Investigations. They do some pretty cool investigations. They do some cool kind of undercover protection style work where they're the plainclothes guy doing some things. And again, for OPSEC, we'll just kind of leave it at that. You have CFI, criminal fraud investigations. I talk about them in my book a little bit. They handle multi-million-dollar or bigger cases, some of them that are multi-million-dollar cases. You have the command center. You could work at the command center and do a year, I believe it's a year tour there. You could work at, be a liaison at the CIA. You could be on the National Security Council, although I think that's more senior level liaison position. I know there's a place at the Human Smuggling and Traffic Center, the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We have liaison there. So there's a number of things that you could do. Secretary's detail, MSD, obviously we talked about. So there's a number of things you can do, offices or departments you can go to support, in your career. Some are support positions, some are just different liaison positions that you can go to. Of course, you have your traditional overseas assignments. Talked about that a little bit. That's where you're doing security management. You'll manage a guard force, a surveillance detection team, possibly a background investigations unit, or just managing the investigations on your own. Physical security access control, you'll manage all that stuff in conjunction with the RSO, the deputy or the senior RSO. If you're in a high threat environment, you could have a thing called personnel recovery. If you read my book with the Caleb Mueller story, that was one of my responsibilities. in northern Iraq was personnel recovery, which is a pretty cool gig as well. So anyway, that's some of the type of departments you can get to. Again, I can expand on any of those. There's a ton of them out there. If you have a specific question about exactly where an individual can serve, or if we have a liaison to them, then let me know. We can do that. I will add that at the field offices, you have the opportunity to go to different federal task force. So I mentioned DBFTF earlier. That's Document Benefit Fraud Task Force run by HSI. You could be on a U.S. Marshals Task Force. You could be on a HIDTA task force with DEA. It's a high intensity drug trafficking area. So there's a number of things that you could do. What's the other one? How is leadership in the organization? I mean, it just depends. I was fortunate I had some pretty good bosses. I had some really good bosses, and then I had some decent ones. I didn't have too many that were shit. But there are some out there that made their way by kissing ass and kissing the ring. And so there's good bosses out there and bad bosses out there. I like to think that the guys that came up near my time, a little bit before me, and actually the guys that were guys and girls that were 2-level when I came in, which means they were equivalent of a GS-14, the ones I worked with were really squared away, and they are getting into more senior leadership roles. I would hope that as they continue to grow within those leadership roles, that the DS is, that the leadership component to DS is better, I guess you could say. But like any organization, you have your 10% of people that aren't good, of leaders that aren't good. And, who am I to say who's a good leader, right? I respond better to some type of people. Someone with a different personality may respond differently. So that's that. Typical day-to-day life, it depends. This could go on and on if I talked about it. It just depends on where you're at. So maybe one post I'll break, or one video I'll break down what it's like working at a traditional embassy, or what it's like on a high threat team, which I have a question as well, working for high threat teams, what it's like there. So, well, we're at 12 minutes, so I'll begin to call it a day. I do have one question: is how good is your book on a coaster for gin and tonics? And I'll say, I don't know. I don't drink those drinks. I drink men drinks, and I drink bourbon. So my book serves quite well for a bourbon. How's that work for you, Quirk? That's right. I said your name. All right, guys. Thanks. Appreciate your time. And we'll check you next time. Out.